It's midday. Good afternoon. You're listening to Citizen FM 93.7 Abuja. Assured all Nigerians and residents in the country, particularly those who will be traveling or joining friends and relatives in public places for the Christmas and New Year celebrations, of their safety and security during and after the Yuletide season. The Inspector General of Police similarly reassured those who will be plying roads, waterways, airports and rail tracks that proactive measures have been placed to ensure they arrive at their destinations devoid of activities of rogue individuals and criminal elements. According to a statement from the force, the IGP has ordered Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of zonal police commands and commissioners of police in charge of states, as well as heads of tactical intelligence and operational units, to ensure heavy deployment of officers in uniforms on the highways, rail lines, waterways, airports and the various recreational. Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says security personnel, including the Army and Department of State Services, have been deployed to its offices in Imo State, given the frequency of attacks on its offices in the area. This comes barely 24 hours after hoodlums attacked and vandalized the INEC office in the Ishu local government area, marking the fourth of such incidents in Imo State in less than 3 weeks. Other attacks were recorded in Olu and Oru West local government areas, as well as the state headquarters in Owerri. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has defended the cash withdrawal limits policy, insisting that it has not targeted vulnerable people. Defending the policy while appearing before the House of Representatives, Deputy Governor, Financial System Stability, Aisha Ahmad, declares that Nigeria could operate a cashless economy, noting that about 94% of cash withdrawals through personnel accounts were less than the corporate accounts were less than 5 million naira. Ahmad represented the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, who'd failed twice to appear before the lawmakers to defend the policy, which had generated a groundswell of opposition from Nigerians. The Apex Bank had informed the House that Emefiele will not appear before the House in person. Rather, Ahmed would lead the Committee of Governors before the lawmakers. The federal government, Dr. Chris Ngige, at a public enlightenment and sensitization workshop for field officers monitoring the implementation of the national minimum wage in Abuja, which was organized by the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission. He said with no establishment could claim ignorance or non-involvement in reaching the collective bargaining agreement on the minimum wage. He stated that all establishments are bound by the Act. Meanwhile, Major Oil Marketers Association, Lagos, Abuja and other parts of the country, insisting that the product is available at depots. The persistent petrol shortages, which had briefly abated following the intervention of the Department of State Services Security (DSS), returned 2 days ago as consumers geared up for the festive season. Queues had returned to pre-DSS intervention period, although the pump price remains the same at 180 naira per litre at major marketers. On the whole, most stations remain closed due to the unavailability of petrol, and this has made plans by Nigerians to travel for the Yuletide a major challenge. A comparative study has found that despite all the stringent and hostile immigration laws of developed countries, 93% of Nigerian returnees and deportees still want to go on a desperate journeys. This, according to them, was the findings of a study where 536 participants across the geopolitical zones of the country were interviewed. The study revealed that they were more often traumatized, as most of them were abandoned by family members with no means of livelihood to cope with life after returning back to the country. However, to cope with the rising challenges and psychological effects they faced, the study proposed that governments should consider building residential homes for the returnees and deportees at capital cities across the country. Moving on to sports, Patrice Motsepe believes the Super Eagles have the potential to win the World Cup. Nigeria have qualified for the World Cup 6 times with their best performance at a competition coming in 1994. The team reached the second round of the Global Football Showpiece. Despite not qualifying for the recently concluded edition in Qatar, the Confederation of African Football president is optimistic that the three-time African champions can win the title. To make this happen, the South African business tycoon says CAF has several programs for its member countries. North Korea fired 2 ballistic missiles towards the sea of its east coast on Friday, the South Korean military said, the latest in an unprecedented number of missile tests this year, coming only days after 2 other missiles were launched and just after allegations were made Thursday the country is shipping munitions to Russian forces in Ukraine. This incident shows that North Korea does not intend to stop the provocative actions its neighbors say are destabilizing regional security. South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff said the missiles flew 350 kilometers and 250 kilometers respectively after being fired at about 4 p.m. from the Sunan area launch.